Welcome back to Real Talk, the show where we sit down with real investors, do real deals, and uncover what's actually happening in today's market. Today, I'm joined by Vincent, the owner of Second Chance Solutions, operating Chicago market. Vincent's business is built around helping homeowners in tough solutions, especially pre-foreclosures, where he helps in finding the best possible outcome, whether it's wholesaling, innovation, listing the property, or even another creative solution. So, what makes Vincent approach unique is that he's not just locked into one exit strategy. He's a licensed agent, an investor, and also a problem solver first, which allows him to truly evaluate what actually makes the most sense for the homeowner and the deal. So, for the people who do not know, Vincent, can you give us a quick background of who you are and how exactly you started in real estate?
Alrighty. Um, yeah, well, Vincent Roofe out of Chicago. I got my start in real estate. I became a licensed agent, I think, after COVID. So I got my license because I wanted to be an investor. So I'm thinking, get a real estate license, and from there, I'll be able to learn all the tools that I need to be a successful investor, which I mean, I like now realize after this last year. Um, being an agent and being an investor can be two different things. And one isn't really necessary for the other, but it can be used as a tool of leverage. So I am glad that I have it. But the first thing I did is I got my license, but at the time I was like a serial entrepreneur doing multiple things. So I was, my very first, I guess, investor side of real estate was doing Airbnb arbitrage. So I did that. I also did arbitrage rental car. Well, it wasn't arbitrage at that point because I owned the cars, but I had a rental car business. I had Airbnbs at the time. This had to be like 2021 or 2022. Um, and Airbnb it was nice. I made a good amount of money. The issue was I didn't like the arbitrage model because I wasn't the owner. So I didn't really have control of the asset, and I started to try to find a building. I really don't even know why I stopped, but I stopped searching after a while. And then I wasn't really doing a lot of transactions as an agent, and I think that was just simply because I was like all over the place with I got a rental car business here, Airbnb business here, I was doing crypto. It wasn't until like last year where I sat down and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go all in on real estate." I had to figure out my focus because at one point I was doing like expireds. So it took like I think I joined sub two in 2023. I bought a house in 2024 from calling expired. So I was still calling expired. I did not really enjoy it. And then I just kind of stumbled onto I got a little taste of pre-foreclosures maybe late 2024. Just looked at it, tried it out. The barrier to entry seemed like really small. So I probably spoke with a few people, but wasn't really consistent with it. I ended up getting into crypto again. This is in 2024. Um, I had a big roller coaster up and down road with crypto in 2024. In 2025, I sat down and had to figure things out and say, hey, listen, we're gonna go all into real estate. So I'm gonna choose my niche, figure out exactly what I want to do. I don't want to just be a regular agent that's just doing a bunch of retail transactions. That's not my goal. I want
Mhm.
to invest, and I want to be able to put myself in a position to invest. And then so I'm figuring out the different strategies of how to do that. Pre-foreclosure kind of struck home because one, it's something that my family have experienced before.
Mhm.
Another was I found that it would be a great tool to allow me to leverage it to also invest myself, but also still be able to do like retail transactions. So that's kind of how I got into pre foreclosures, which was last year. And I want to say around June, maybe end of Q2, I really kind of figured out like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what my schedule is gonna be. This is how many calls I'm gonna make. Started to kind of figure those things out, and now we're here today, and we are. I mean, we're just moving into space. I've learned a lot these past, what I guess, 6 or 7 months. I've started to adapt more, I guess, more systems. Because at first I really started with like I did everything for free. I didn't want to spend any money because I had a roller coaster ride with crypto. So I really
Hmm.
didn't have a lot of money. So I did
Yeah.
everything like manual text, manual calls, manual skip tracing. I had built the scraper so I could scrape data. Everything was like, I got to do this for free. Did it, worked out, and now I'm starting to pay for some of those services so I could just buy more time and be able to do more deals with the allotment of time that I've essentially bought myself. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself and how I've gotten here to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like an amazing story. I think you give us like a really good breakdown on where exactly you started from and your journey all the way till here. So you mentioned that you work a lot on pre-foreclosures, right? So can you
Yeah.
explain what that situation looked like for homeowners and why it requires a different approach compared to a standard deal?
Oh yeah, for sure. So there's a few different components. The first is there is a level of compassion that you have to have when you are dealing with pre foreclosures, simply because these people are about to lose their home. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
it's not sometimes even when they do elect to sell, it's not like they went into this process wanting to sell the property.
Yeah.
It may get to the point where they realize that, hey, this is the best solution for me to move forward and put some of these things behind me. But even then, it's like you never want something to be taken from you. You know what I mean? And regardless of if they do allow if they do elect to sell, which I mean they do, if they're gonna sell the property, they're gonna elect to sell, and they're figuring out that this is the best solution. It still started from a place of pain, if that makes sense, and I just think there's a lot of pain there, both emotionally and financially, when you're talking about pre foreclosures. And that was really a great question because when I'm talking to, I guess, different, I guess, lead providers in a sense, or looking at different systems, I try to make it really clear that my approach isn't the same as the average wholesaler, fixer flipper, or whoever who are just reaching out to people like, hey, I want to buy your property. I don't, I mean, I do think you can do that with certain pre foreclosures, but for the most part, I don't really go in with that approach because, like I said, they are in this emotional space where I
Yeah.
really want to be able to provide a solution. And I have to let them know that, hey, you have an allotment of options, or you do have these options that are available. And I have to kind of bridge the gap of lacks of information to let them know what is available and then go from there. It turns out
Hmm.
that sometimes they're in a situation where they really do just have to sell, but that's not always the case, and that's why I don't like to approach it like, hey, are you looking for a quick cash offer? Because that's not the only solution for them. I've helped people
Yeah.
do loan modifications. I help people stay in their property. I've helped heirs stay in the property as well. I know like other wholesalers or agents will look at me like, well, what are you doing? But I mean, it's not just about being able to get a deal for yourself. It's also about
Hmm.
helping people in the long run. And I just truly believe that if I help enough people, just with the situation, one business will come to me. The other
Yeah.
is there are going to be enough people that want to sell or have to sell based off the situation where I'll get business that way as well. So I never go into it like, okay, this is a great house. I gotta buy this house. No, we're gonna go through the same rundown that I go through with everyone. The only way we don't typically go through that full rundown is if they have convinced me that, hey, based off my circumstances, I've decided that this is the option that I'm gonna do. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll explore those options. But I don't know if that cleanly answered your question,
Yeah.
but if it did not, that I would say the answer is definitely there's a level of compassion when you have to speak with them. So you're not speaking
Yeah.
to them just like, hey, I have a cash offer. You're speaking to them, letting them know, hey, this is the situation. I just want to let you know what you do have, what you can do at this point of the process.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how I approach it.
So in short, give them the best possible solution which they have on the table. At the same
Yeah, give
time,
them
all of yeah.
that. Yep, give them that solution, and then allow them to. I mean, you have to educate them on these things and like walk them through it. Because what I don't like to do is like, and sometimes I struggle with this almost to my deficit and potentially to theirs as well, where I let
Hmm.
them navigate it a little too much, and I have to kind of break down what that means. But essentially, I have to educate them and allow them to see what the solution is, opposed to me guiding them towards a solution, if that makes sense. Like I don't need to be
Yep.
directing them. I need to be giving them the information and allowing them to say, okay, yeah, this may not make sense for me, or this makes sense for me. And providing that clarity, I think with pre-foreclosures is like super important. I think
Got
that's
it.
probably the most important thing you can do.
God. And I think that's one of the most honorable as well as the most beautiful thing anybody can do, because obviously people during the stages they are going through such a stressful time, right? And they want to make sure that they get the best possible help out there. And a lot of the wholesalers they want to get the best deal. But it's amazing
Right,
that you
right,
are trying to help them out at the same time as much as possible.
right, right, right.
Yeah. So obviously you've been in the market for quite some time. So fast forward today, what does your operation look like right now? Can you maybe talk a little bit more about the Chicago markets you're active in, and also the type of deals you're doing on a regular basis?
Yeah, so a couple of things to keep in mind is from June is when I kind of started this operation. Um, and what I was doing was I was scraping county data to get my information. So I only had like maybe two because I had to build the scrapers out and it was like not super quick. It wasn't that bad. Use Cloud AI. Cloud worked. But anyway, I had to build scrapers out. So I was using two scrapers that for the most part pulled a lot from Cook County. Like 90% of the deals were from Cook County. Then I had to skip trace them myself. I ended up like outsourcing it a little bit, but I had to skip trace it myself, make calls, verify those numbers to then have someone that I was working with on commission to shoot text. And they were just doing manual
Mhm.
text, manual text. So I was doing that up until December. I was able to get a listing short, like I think in the first month of us, maybe like the first week, we got an assignment deal on the contract. Didn't close, but we got an assignment deal on the contract. We got a short sale in the listing. Like
Mhm.
the assignment was probably first week. The other two were like within the first month. So I'm like, okay, this thing really works. Two of those didn't even really close. It was one of the sellers like backed out at the very last minute. Um, but essentially, December, I decided like, okay, I had proof of concept because I had signed a deal by then. I had multiple deals on the contract. I had bought a couple flips. I decided to start to outsource some of those things, and that kind of introduced the system that I'm using now, where we're doing automated text and pretty much automated follow up. So right now, what I'm still adjusting because this literally just happened in December as far as a system approach. I had it kind of down packed when I was doing everything for free, but essentially I know what it needs to look like, which I'm still working on, which is text. I'm doing now I'm filtering my information where before it was just when the leads come in, they just come in. I'm reaching out to them. Now I have more of a filter system where I'm categorizing them by tiers.
Mhm.
And then so I'm shooting text to all leads. I do calls to the highest tiers to the lowest tiers. And then it's still something that I'm optimizing in the moment, but for the most part, it's just lead comes in, it gets a text, gets a call. Every day I update the system to add new leads. And from there, if they respond, okay, at that point, if they respond to any of them, text, call, emails, because I'm doing all those campaigns. Excuse me, I didn't mention email. Text campaign, email campaign, and we are doing calls. And I also have a caller as well. And I guess the way it works really is lead comes in, they get that call, they get that text. Whoever responds, I'm reaching out to them. At the point that I'm
Mhm.
reaching out to them, I'm kind of taking their hand from there and then just going through the full process. And I don't like change. So once I reach out to this lead and I'm working with this lead, um, you know, there may be a deal where there's no equity.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still talk to them because I'm able to monetize them via a short sale. But sometimes they may really, really, really want to keep the property. And they're like, yo, this is I'm going to keep this property. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. At that point, I'll still walk them through the process. Hey, we need to do a loan mod. We need
Mhm.
to do this. We need to do that. Here's the other areas that you could potentially try to, here's another solution where you could try to keep the property. Now, I'm gonna let you know that
Mhm.
down the road, this could be an issue. You might just be kicking a can, but let me give you the options and let you know what's going on. So, um, that has pretty much been my system, which I'm still optimizing now that I've just added those, new tiers essentially with the automated text, automated emails. But in a nutshell, it's pretty much text, calls, emails are going out. Anyone that responds, I get to those first, and then after that, I'll go through my tier list of making those calls.
Amazing. So obviously, so I think one of the things which I want to know is obviously like being a licensed agent, right? Like it gives you like a lot of options which regular investors don't have. So how exactly does that change the conversation? Like when you're able to have with sellers, like especially compared to investor who only does wholesaling.
And this is what my brain just immediately went to when you asked that question. One thing that sometimes it gets a bit scary having a license and having these conversations. Well, only when it gets to the part of like, okay, I'm gonna put an offer out on the property. At the
Hmm.
beginning, it's very easy because like I'm not approaching them as a real estate agent or a real estate investor. I let them know that I have a license, as I have to do by law. But my approach is more so, hey, let's put the solutions on the table. Now, where it gets a little tricky, and I know a lot of like unicorn agents or agents who do both, at least in Illinois, aren't aware of this, but you have to have a lot of documentation signed when you are buying deals as a licensed agent, especially if they're
Hmm.
undervalued deals, because you can get into a lot of trouble down the line.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's what you were really getting into with this question, but I'll still just answer this part, and if there's something different, you can let me know. But what I have to do is I have to disclose that I'm a licensed agent. Um,
Hmm.
a lot of times I disclose, well, not a lot of times, whenever I'm given an offer, I disclose that, hey, my offer is undervalued, essentially. We're essentially stating that, hey, I'm buying this property at a discount.
Yeah.
Um, the truth is, you may not be able to get a higher offer. I mean, you may be able to get one, but you may not have the ability to put the property on the market simply because we don't have the timeline to do
Yeah.
so. But if there's an event where we do have the timeline to do so, they understand it. They get the. I'll let them know the market value. I'll let them know
Hmm.
those things, and I'll say, okay, this is what If we put the property on the market, this is what these things will look like. If I purchase it, this is what it will look like. The conditions
Got
or
it.
the terms are different. The price is different. The
Hmm.
terms are different. And then I allow them to choose. And I just think that is really important to do as an agent, simply because you don't want no one coming down the line, looking to sue you or saying that they
Yeah.
thought you were their agent when you're buying it, or they weren't aware of certain things. I think that is where things get, a bit tricky. But
Hmm.
outside of that, I mean, my approach is pretty much the same straight through, simply because I'm approaching it from a solution oriented aspect, opposed to like a buyer or an agent. So I'm not like calling, hey, I'm a realtor with blah 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 EXP Realty, and
Yeah.
this is what we're looking to do. It's more so, hey, this is my company. We specialize in this. I do have a licensee, which I am a licensee, which I have to disclose, but that is not the goal of this call right here.
Got it. So it's like you're giving the best of two options, right? You know, if you have the timeline, obviously I can get you the best deal you want. But let's say if the timeline is a little bit lesser, then obviously you got this is the best we can do at this
This is the
exact
best
time.
we can do. This is the best we can do.
Nice. And I noticed you mentioned you work in Chicago market, right? And it's a unique market with regulation, timelines, and legal complexity. So what should investors understand about operating there, especially when it comes to like pre-foreclosures and compliance? Is there anything which they should look out for?
I would say in pre-foreclosures in the state of Illinois, period, because we are very tenant and I guess borrower homeowner friendly. Uh, you have to understand the timelines with the pre-foreclosure process, because here the motivation isn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, it is absolutely there. No one wants to lose their home, but it's not as strong as in other markets, because in other markets sometimes once they set you're late, you can be in and out, I think, in like 3 or 4 months. uh, Whereas here, I've dealt with homeowners who have been in pre-foreclosure for 2 years. Some have been in pre-foreclosure for 5 years, which is absolutely insane. Um, so you have to understand the timeline here with pre-foreclosures, simply
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, if you are, you could be wasting your time talking to a lot of people who are just not ready to move yet. They're not ready, or when I say move, they're not ready to make a decision at all yet. So that's one thing that's I think really important in the Chicago market with pre-foreclosures, or just Illinois throughout. Um, I guess from like an investor standpoint, and I don't know if this is, I'm gonna say this, I don't know if it's still a skill set or resource thing, but when I'm in these various real estate investment groups, I'm talking to like wholesalers, and I get that these things happen everywhere. But I personally feel like the numbers in, like, from a rehab standpoint, the numbers
Mm-hmm.
in Chicago, um, it does not add up to these other markets. So when people are assigning deals or looking to assign deals, it's like the rehab numbers that you guys are throwing out here. I don't know, maybe that may work in your local market, but in Chicago, it just seems like it's much higher. So
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like when people are sending deals from out of state, it's like, hey, these numbers do not make sense. They don't at all. And I don't I mean I don't know how great of an answer that is, but that's something that I've run into when dealing with investors that are out of state, or when you're like learning wholesaling and you're using this one formula to analyze your deals, and you're looking to push that to someone. It is, I don't get how they're doing or how they're coming up with some of these numbers for some of these projects. So that would
Mm-hmm.
be something I'd say about the Chicago market for sure, just as a broad overview, or broad point, not specific to pre foreclosures.
Got it. I think you have like a ton of experience as well as a ton of value to share with our audience. So obviously we are almost towards the end of the session. So any one piece of advice you want to maybe share with investors who just want starting out, who just want to get into the space?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As someone who got their license in 2021, and what, it was 2025 when I finally figured out what I was going to specialize in, and finally kind of got into my groove. My number one advice, and this is not even just to wholesalers or whoever, I just think this is to entrepreneurs, period, or just people, period.
Hmm.
Find that one thing, find that one thing that you want to specialize in, and niche in that, and become an expert in that. And don't go around having like multiple business or doing multiple things. If you can, try to have this one thing that you can put all your energy, all your effort into, become a master in that. And I think if you niche down, which I hear a lot of wholesalers say not to do, I don't really agree with that. I think if you can niche down, get it, find a list, and you just kill that list, I think you'll become the expert in that list. And the good thing is, other people will reach out to you when they know that you are the person for this thing. So,
Hmm.
my advice would be to find that niche. For me, it's pre foreclosures. And like, don't go too wide. Just go deep. Go deep into that list. Go deep into that niche. And that, like I said, that can be for anyone. If it were real
Yeah.
estate, someone who's e-commerce, or whatever you find, the one thing. Don't try to do multiple at once, and just hone down. I think that's. If I known that in 2021, this would, I have probably a big different background behind me.
Well, well said, Vincent. Well said. Obviously, it's better late than never. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for this wonderful advice. And obviously, for those who are listening to you and want to connect with you, is there a way they can get in touch with you? Are you like active on Instagram? Any email ID you want to maybe share?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Vincent Roof, RE. I'm getting into being a little more active and talking more about the things that that I'm doing in this space. But I've had a somewhat active Instagram page for I don't even know how long. So yeah, you can definitely follow me on at Vincent Roof, RE. I'm on Instagram and TikTok.
Amazing. Well, this was an amazing session, Vincent. That's it for today's episode. Ton of value, ton of content, and actual stories about what investors and wholesalers are doing in today's market. Tune in next week, where we're going to be coming with new stories, new updates, and new information regarding investors and wholesalers. Till then, thank you so much, Vincent. You all have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, Deon.